back to the channel. Thanks for joining us again. This is round 2 of the Max Wedge engine up on the dyno up here at Pete's place. You guys saw this in my last video where we made 780 horsepower using these Trickflow Max Wedge 270 cylinder heads. After that video, I said Pete's actually gonna start fitting a 6-pack onto this thing to make the ultimate wedge 6-pack motor. It's a total unicorn because I did some searching online and I had trouble finding a Max Wedge 6-pack motor. So this thing is super cool. I'm gonna walk you guys through the complete build and then we're gonna get into some dyno tuning and some power pulls and check out how much horsepower this monster makes. Let's get into that build info right now. Just look at this unit. Okay, so it is a 493 cubic inch big block Mopar. It's a stroker motor based on a 440. It is a stock block, but it does have forged crank and a girdle in the bottom. We do have, like I said, the Trickflow 270 Max Wedge heads. This is the secret to the power in this big block Mopar. He's also running a solid roller cam. Very healthy compression. Pete, what's the compression on this motor?
11.8.
11.8 to 1, so very healthy compression. And then here we go. This is the crowning jewel on top. There you see, it's an original style Max Wedge intake, and you can see here all the weld that had to get put onto this intake in order to increase support size to match those Max Wedge heads. That's the whole kicker here. So some guys have done a 6-pack Max Wedge engine, but they usually use the Indy intake, which has basically a box type design and a plate you can interchange. I had trouble finding, in fact, I couldn't find any pictures, videos, or anybody doing this intake, an original style 6-pack to a Max Wedge head. So this thing's an ultimate unicorn. These are original style carburetors for a 6-pack, but Pete has changed them with interchangeable jets, front and back. And currently he has some spacers along the bottom of those carburetors as well, just to give it a little bit more plenum volume. He ran this thing yesterday without any spacers. I'm gonna show you guys those stats. And then today we're gonna run it as is. And we got some more tuning to do to get the most horsepower out of this as we can. Really cool build. Pete's stoked on this fuel line setup too. I'll find out who made that because he was stoked on that. Allows access to all the tuning on the carburetors. Really nice piece though. And like I said, this thing made 780 on a single plane Dominator style intake. If you guys haven't seen that video, go back, check it out. We swapped 2 different intakes, added spacers, 780 we made on this thing. So not sure we're gonna get near that today, just because the 6-pack is almost like a dual plane design on the inside. Compared to a big single plane, it's not gonna make as much power, but super cool. You could paint those heads and put this in a 6-pack car and nobody would know. So awesome. A lot of welding was done on this. They really had to stack it up to bring the port up, create the same size as the Max Wedge. Then they kind of detailed her down. I saw this thing off, and they actually had to weld on the bottom side as well. You can see the weld starts there, it comes all the way back. Those ports are just massive on those Max Wedge heads, and that's the problem. Well, it's not a problem. It's like the greatest problem ever, massive ports. Your ports are too big for your intake is like a good problem. That's so cool though. And again, if you want a little bit more info on the setup on the single plane, do go back to that previous video. I think I have more on the build on that video. And here are Pete's preliminary runs without the spacers. He made 713 horsepower at 6,200 and really nice torque at 663. 4,900 RPM, but look at the air fuel. It's super clean, bank to bank, both sides, and this thing just makes gobs of power. Those Max Wedge heads are absolutely phenomenal. It makes me want a big block for sure, and the torque, you just can't get that torque out of a small block. That is awesome. And on behalf of Mopar guys everywhere, I'd like to say thank you to Trickflow, not only for these 270 Max Wedge cylinder heads, but also your 240 big block heads are really good as well. And my personal favorite, your Trickflow small block heads, which I personally own, absolutely killer. Trickflow is helping us Mopar guys out. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna fire up and we are gonna be running the air cleaner on it today. All right. after Pete got a good amount of heat into the motor, we were ready to make our first dyno pull. So you can see with those spacers back up to 729 now, but you can see our air-fuel ratio is not very happy here. So Pete is gonna go inside the carburetors and start doing some jet changes. This is pretty interesting. So just with those spacers, it messed up the air fuel, but it picked up good power because the best he saw before was 713 and then 663. And now here he's got at 6100, 729. And I see 669s at 46 and 4700 RPM. But that air fuel needs to be addressed. We got a lean bank. So Pete is already into this thing and doing some jet changes now. And Pete, who makes this fuel line here?
Those are the Pack Max boys.
Pack Max, so hooking up the 6-pack guys with those easy access fuel lines. Right on.
We are going to proceed with stagger jetting, and we're going to go fairly radical. So from 92 square, we're going to go 95 and 90.
So just doing some stagger jetting. It's a bit of a crapshoot because it is like a dual plane design, but we're going to try to stagger it, see if we can clean up that air fuel ratio. Quick shot down the barrel here too. So here are the spacers. He milled those out to create an open plenum, and then I've shown you guys this divider before on a previous 6-pack video. So he's milled that down and then massaged the inlet. That's the septum divider down there. More plenum volume, better flow, more power. Okay, jetting change is done. Air cleaner going back on, ready for our next pull. So Pete staggered jetting totally paid off. Look at these air fuel ratios, much better. He's really happy about that, and then really happy about this. 732 horsepower now at 6100, and then look at the torque in here. 677 now at 48. So he picked up like, where were we at before? So he picked up 6 or 7 foot-pounds, another 3 horsepower, and a much better air fuel ratio with that staggered jetting on a dual plane. So that's pretty cool. Well, not a conventional dual plane, of course, but you do get crossover. So a little leaner on one bank, fatter on the other, paid off. Okay, so Pete is diving back into the carburetors to even get a little bit more even air fuel ratio, bank to bank. Pete, what's the jet change we're making here?
We're just going one number. On the right side, we're going to a 96 from a 95. And on the left side, we're going from a 90 to an 89.
So just a minor change in the front and the back, leaving the center section, and hopefully this will even clean up that air fuel just a touch and a squeak more horsepower. Hell yeah, brother.
Anything cleaner.
Show you guys just real quick, that lower plate, a lot of guys asked about the company that make that. Looks like it's AR Engineering. Really nice piece.
Good?
Good? Okay, jet change done, air cleaner's back on, ready for another hit. So on that last dyno hit, the power levels were pretty much identical, but you can see even with that small jet change, it kind of threw it back into the lean zone here and the fat zone here. So Pete is going to switch her back to the 9590 stagger he was on before. Okay, so back to that jetting that we were really happy with. It made a couple hits, got some good heat in the motor, and then we saw the biggest power of the day, 6,200 RPM, and we're making 400 or 744 horsepower, and then the biggest torque we saw too all day today, you got 688.8 at 51, so that jumped up quite a bit too. Air fuel ratio is kind of going back the way it was before, but the power is just coming through. This just might be what happens with those 6-pack motors. Pete's been fighting this all day. He's definitely happy with his power number. He's not too happy about the air fuel, so his new plan is to switch it back, take the spacers out, and then run it square jetted like he did originally without the spacers.
With lighter diaphragms.
And change the spring diaphragm as well for better transition. Okay, so we are back with the 6-pack, no spacers now, and back to that square jet where Pete had it before. Air cleaner's back on, ready to make it. Okay, so with no spacers back into sleeper mode, still making 726 at 63 and 663 at 47. Look at the air fuels though. That thing's square jetted without the spacer is really clean. That's pretty interesting considering the spacers were open. We had to run a bunch of stagger with the spacers over here to make 744 at 62 and 679. So you're giving up, you know, almost 20 horsepower and, you know, close to 20 foot-pounds as well. But this thing will fit under the stock hood of a B body and total sleeper mode. Max Wedge 6-pack win. Okay, so that's closing out the video on the 6-pack Max Wedge engine. Pete, you want to add some thoughts to it?
I just want to thank Joe for coming up and entertaining both me and you.
No problem, buddy.
Doing a lot of conclusive testing. We've now found that, you know, with perfectly square jetting, the manifold is 100% happy, air fuel bank to bank, yet you put spacers in there and it goes completely sideways. And we found that the spacers were worth an additional, what, did you say, 12?
20, well, about 18.
Yeah, so substantial increase with the spacers, but either way, we have the bucket list Max Wedge 6-pack has now come to fruition, and a high water mark of 744 horses, nothing to hold to be ashamed of. So,
no doubt. And possible, where is this engine possibly going to live in the future?
well, currently we haven't made that decision, but want to put it in your dart?
Kinda. Boom. Okay, what a combo. That's it for this video. The 6-pack Max Wedge engine. Let me know in the comments, have you ever seen a 6-pack motor make 744 horsepower? Or have you ever even seen a proper 6-pack intake on a Max Wedge head? I bet you won't be able to find any info on either of those. So thanks again for watching, guys. Thanks to Pete for inviting us up here and letting us film all the time. He's talking about doing more stuff. He wants to put his 1,000 horsepower big block Mopar back on the dyno. He's got a 528 Hemi he wants to put on here, all kinds of stuff. Stay tuned for that over winter. It's dyno season. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Damn.